talk about another team here that is about to start its season in 8 days, going through its preseason now. And I'm not talking about the Wild, who you guys we'll be doing a lot of Wild stuff. You guys have your Judd's Hockey Show, which people can find on the Mackey and Judd podcast feed, Judd's Hockey Show podcast feed, and the Score North YouTube channel. I'm talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves, who start their season on Wednesday, October 19th, at home against Oklahoma City. I think they have a couple preseason games left.
They got one here against Brooklyn, don't they?
Yep. They dusted off Karl-Anthony Towns for the first time since his... I don't mean to make light of it, but like the guy was in the hospital and lost a bunch of weight and stuff.
Come here.
And so they ran him out in a preseason game.
Put my Wolves bib on for this conversation.
Please do.
Keeping a Wolves.
That would be great. Another shameless plug, you can check out the Flagrant Howls podcast, which begins recording twice a week here later this month. Myself and Kyle Tigey. And you can find that on all the same channels I just mentioned. So I have for you a pecking order of the 5 things I am most curious about going into this Timberwolves season, if I may indulge you. Feel free to stop me throughout this. We can discuss each of these.
Meat and potatoes, Wolves conversation.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right. These are in order from, like, the first one is going to be the thing I am the most interested in. And there's more than 5, but, you know, we got other things to record and do around here, so I'm going to just stop myself at 5. Let's start with the number one thing that I am the most curious about. Anthony Edwards. This dude is built like a brick house now. Mm-hmm. He looks taller. So I think he's bigger than Naz Reid now. And Naz Reid is a power forward / center. Mm-hmm. It looks like he grew an inch or two. I don't know what he's going to be listed at going into the season, but he was listed weight-wise at 225, I think, last year. He's got to be 235, maybe 2. I mean, he looks like an NFL tight end in a basketball uniform, but also the most athletic player on the court with almost any 9 guys he is standing out there with. Mm-hmm. And it's preseason, it's early, but the way he's going into traffic in the lane and converting at the rim, the way he knocked down a couple mid-range shots, too, like, he obviously went into the offseason, in addition to doing the Adam Sandler movie and some other stuff, turning 21 years old, and he busted his ass in the gym behind the scenes, and he looks like he did the last few months. So is there a third-year leap to be had here for Anthony Edwards? If the physique and the attack mode in the preseason are any indication, the answer is yes. But that is the number one thing I'm the most curious about going into the season.
I would love to know in retrospect now, in regards to Ant, how it ever got out, or why there was a thought process that he might not love basketball.
Yeah,
like this whole thing, he's going to be like Wiggy. And and I know he won a championship, but he's a guy that could drive you crazy. Since Ant got here, has he ever not shown a desire to win or be the best possible?
No, and on the Wiggy comparisons, yeah. Their frames are different, but Andrew Wiggins has had almost a decade to put on muscle in the NBA, and he barely has. Anthony Edwards is already one of the thickest, strongest players in the entire league going into year 3.
And I would compare Ant, as far as desire, from what we've seen at least, more to Justin Jefferson. He seems to have that same type of desire to be great. Because, Jefferson works his ass off too. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want. But, there was this whole thing about, be careful. He might love football more than basketball. He might not love basketball. I don't think we've seen that once since the guy got here.
Well, yeah. And this is where and Kyle on Flagrant House has been he's been my therapist on this. I say, listen, I have like 30 plus years of Timberwolves PTSD built up. They've had one real franchise player, like Hall of Fame level franchise player that can really carry things, and that's Kevin Garnett. And they've had cracks at other ones. They've whiffed on Derek Williams. They've whiffed on all these big picks, right? Kevin Love was really good, but not quite that guy. Karl-Anthony Towns is really good, but not quite that guy. And I keep telling him, I see Anthony Edwards in a vacuum and think, oh my God, this guy is going to be one of the 3 best players in the NBA. Look at his physique. Look at his skill set. Look at everything. His personality. He in a vacuum is destined to be one of the faces of the NBA soon. But then I go outside the vacuum and put him in the context of Timberwolves history, and I can't help but feel a little bit angsty about, but is he going to hit some weird glass ceiling because Timberwolves? And Kyle says, dude, you got to move past that. It's a different it's a different time. You've got different people that are kind of running the franchise now with Mark Lowry and now Tim Connolly. So I don't know. Is my angst over like just Timberwolves history leaking in here?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Teggy's exactly right. You got to put that behind. I mean, short of him suffering a catastrophic injury of some sort, which would be incredibly Wolves-like, but I mean, there's nothing that I see that stops him, that's going to stop him from being. I love how he's wired, and I think he's going to be fantastic. And yes, I do not think he's going to fall into the Wolves who just went off a cliff, and you really can't explain why in retrospect.
Yeah.
I'm with Kyle on this.
The number two thing I'm the most curious about here in this pecking order, the hidden value of Rudy Gobert. Because you can kind of, you duck in on Jazz games over the years, and you see him, or you see like a big block in a highlight or an alley-oop or something, like a lob. But he's the type of guy that I think we're going to learn so much about watching him in longer form. So go watch him for 38 minutes in a game, or go watch him for 2 months to start the season. Mm-hmm. And he played his first preseason game for the Wolves against the Lakers a few nights ago. And I told this to Kyle on Flagrant Halls, and I'll lay it out for you guys. I have said for months that Gobert gets the short end of the stick sometimes. Like the commentary surrounding the trade, it's like, how could you give that much up for Rudy Gobert? I mean, look at, he doesn't really give you anything offensively, and yeah, he like rebounds and stuff, but people, if you can't see it with your own eyes in a box score, or if it's not an offensive thing that you can quantify, that guy knocked down 5 threes tonight. Sometimes it's hard to put what Gobert does in a box. And there was a play against the Lakers. What's that music, by the way? Is that Declan? Oh,
I don't know what's playing.
I'm trying to get a nice NBA TNT bed for because we had the hockey bed, we had the football bed, so I was trying to find a nice NBA TNT bed, and I was making sure that the loop was correct.
What is that guy on the left doing? They ask, and I say he's just sabotaging. He's tired of the Wolves top 5 list, and so he's sabotaging.
I'm tired of the NFL bed. I want another bed for basketball because we had the hockey one and the football one, so I found a basketball one. But that's what I was doing.
There you go. I got you. We got one for right here.
Wolves are playing basketball. Season's gonna start.
So, okay, there was a play against the Lakers.
Good song.
The Lakers have the ball offensively. Rudy Gobert is in the paint with his 17-foot wingspan, right? Yep. Just a praying mantis of defense. And a Lakers player dribbles up and attempts at first to attack the paint, and then realizes, like happens so many times against Rudy Gobert, oh God, Rudy Gobert is in the paint. I'm going to pull up now for a jump shot from 15 feet or so, like just off the elbow. And Gobert puts his hand, he didn't like contest the shot directly, but he kind of like had his hands up at the paint. So Lakers player airballs a shot from 15 feet. Airballs, a professional basketball player airballs a shot from 15 feet because Gobert was like in the paint.
Yeah.
I think a Lakers player got the rebound, and if I remember right, Gobert turning around toward that player caused him to miss the putback. No block. So 2 misses, but no block. And then Gobert grabs the defensive rebound. So on that play, you had his presence alone derails the Lakers' offensive possession, causes an air ball on a 15-footer, then causes a miss on a putback, again, because of fear of him blocking a shot. And he winds up with one stat on that play, and it was a defensive rebound. But he made like 3 or 4 different things happen. And I guess I'm excited to sort of watch the hidden value of Rudy Gobert play out over the course of games and the season. It's going to be fun to watch.
And there also is an expectation that he can do more offensively as well, correct? That the Jazz didn't really call on him to do, but he can do here potentially. Like I'm curious to see as well off that point how much potentially more there is to his game here too. Like I don't think it's probably a ton, but I mean he probably is going to be allowed to do some things on the offensive end here that the Jazz didn't ask him to do. I think ultimately the most interesting thing is if this works as planned, the MVP of this team is really going to be Chris Finch. Because he's the master. He's the guy with the chess pieces. And I mean, he's really good at this. But I mean, if he can get these pieces to all work on both ends of the floor, we are talking Coach of the Year.
Yeah, it's very possible. If everything gels together, and the perception will be, wow, he got these two, he got the target centers to play together at the same time and whatever. and got the Wolves to 50-plus wins for the first time in 18 years, and he will be in the conversation. Thing number 3 that I am most curious about this Timberwolves season, Jalen Noel, not a household name at all. I think among Timberwolves fans, he's becoming kind of a household name, but he's really, he's only been playing sparingly in his 3-ish years. Like last year, he only averaged 15 minutes a night, only played 62 games. But if you look at his, first of all, just like based on the eye test, he can get a shot off on his own at any level. He can get to the rim. He has a mid-range game. He can shoot threes at a 40% clip. So kind of unleashing him as a sixth man off the bench, I would love to see, for the 48 minutes of the game, I would love to see some combination of Ant, D'Lo, and or Jaylen Noel always on the court. Because if one of those guys is always on the court, someone can create a shot or create offense. And there might be a couple other guys too that emerge, but if you're in good hands if one of those guys or two of those guys are on the court, because if the shot clock's winding down, you don't have to oh my God, who's going to get a shot off? Mm-hmm. But per 36 minutes last year, Jaylen Noel averaged 20 points, 4.5 rebounds, 5 assists, and a steal on 48% shooting and 40% from three-point range. Mm-hmm. He's a really good offensive player, and he's yet to be unleashed. And I feel like Chris Finch, I think he kind of almost felt bad about it last year, that it maybe should have happened last year. And they have a deep team, so he's not going to just be gifted minutes, but I think they're going to start off with a plan to give him 20 to 25 minutes off the bench as a guy that can ignite the offense with the second unit. So I'm very excited to watch him play.
I go back to that December run when basically half the Wolves roster got COVID and they had to basically sign Greg Monroe off the street, and he comes in with 20 minutes before game time against the Celtics and helps the Wolves for 15, 20 minutes. But during that run that Phil's talking about, where per 36 minutes and during that run of the COVID stretch where the roster was hampered, he was their guy. He had to play all those minutes, and he was pretty damn solid. So he legitimately could be not just a slappy off the bench, a legit sixth man of the year that could spell and knock down some big shots for you. That isn't just a chucker either. That I think sometimes NBA players get kind of locked into that. I'm just going to chuck a lot of shots off the bench because this is my role kind of a thing. He's a legit guy that can actually knock down those shots.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the good part about this is I think that to what Declan is saying, the subtraction of Beasley and what they're going to do off the bench, I like this more. I know that Malik could come in and get hot.
An epic season in Utah,
yes.
leading them with 20 points a game.
Exactly, and he's going to be throwing up shots. But I mean, it always seemed if he came into games off the bench and was hot, it was fantastic. It's great. But when he wasn't, he still was trying to make shots that he shouldn't have. I think Jaylen Noel's a smarter player too. So I think that the bench is definitely going to be hurt by some of the subtractions in the Gobert trade. But on that one, I think you're right. I think it's a preferable now move to have Jaylen Noel get more time.
Some might say you should hit the over on Jaylen Noel stats early in the season on Underdog. I'm just going to throw that out there.
You absolutely should. That's another fun part, that not just for our sake that we get winter sports back, but now we get to actually hammer some overs and unders on the NHL and NBA season. So all those pick'em lines like to come out usually about 4 to 5 hours before tip-off, and sometimes like to rise up. So if you see a Jaylen Noel pick'em for, let's say, 8.5 points, slam that over. You may as well, because he's going to be knocking down shots off the bench. Download the Underdog Fantasy app, promo code SCORE, SKOR, and they will match your first deposit up to $100. You can put some over-unders on the Wolves, the Wild, the Vikings. Underdog Fantasy, the best and easiest way to play fantasy sports.
Shout out to our friends, too, at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They have been helping keep the lights on for years here at not only Score North, but at 1500 ESPN when Judd and I were doing a show 4 hours a day on the radio, too. So thanks to their support for helping us through the last few years. And they've been helping business owners with risk management tools and resources, frontline protection for your business. Go find out more about how Federated can help elevate your business at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right. This pecking order has 2 more items left here of things I am most curious about going into the Timberwolves season that starts in a week. Number 4. Can Karl-Anthony Towns be more stoic when his team needs it? Can he, as Phil Jackson's mental coach once told me on a podcast, George Mumford, can he put more space between the mechanism and the response? The thing that happens, the bad call, the run by the other team, the crowd noise, an opponent getting under your skin, whatever that thing is, can he put some space between that and his reaction to it? Committing dumb offensive fouls, barreling into the lane, right? Complaining to officials, whatever it may be. Because when he's on his A game and he is playing with emotions that are sort of channeled the right way, he's one of the 15-ish best players in the NBA. But when he starts to freak out and get himself in foul trouble and lose control of his emotions, as you saw in about half of the playoff games, including the playing game against the Clippers, he can sabotage his own team.
Yeah.
He's no longer a 21-year-old kid. It's time to stop being I'll say it, a giant baby in some of these situations. Your team needs you on the court, so please get that reined in this season. Can he do it?
All right, I think there's 3 key people here because I don't know he can by himself. Like, he's getting to an age now, because we keep saying this, and it's true, and yet in the play-in game against the Clippers, he disappeared. And then in the playoffs, for enough games that it mattered, he did the exact same thing. So, 3 people. Finch, Gobert, can Gobert help him? And a more mature, hopefully, Ant. Because I feel like much with Cousins, when it comes to this part of Cat's game, he needs help. He needs help. I don't know that he can rein himself in. I don't know that he's ever going to get there. But if you have the right support system and people around you, I think it can help. And my biggest question of those 3 is, what does the presence of Gobert do? Does that help him? Because Gobert seems to me, unless I'm wrong about this, to be a pretty cool, calm customer. Like, he doesn't look to me like he flies off the handle a ton. And so can those 3 especially help stabilize Cat? I feel like D'Lo can't. So I don't include him.
I think
he tries, but I feel like he can't. I've seen him try. It doesn't work very well.
Well, I mean, but D'Lo's in that equation. I mean, you're kind of opening up like a leadership discussion to fill the void of, Pat Beverly was definitely a leader and perceived to be a leader too.
The issue with Pat Beverly is, and I loved it, but he would fly off the handle, so it's hard to tell Cat not to, although he did try.
A couple other sneaky veterans to keep an eye on in terms of just like leadership, either frontally or behind the scenes, are Kyle Anderson, who they brought over. Okay. And Austin Rivers. Austin Rivers, I believe, has played the most playoff games of any current Timberwolves. He's played like 60 playoff games.
Okay.
I don't know that he's ever lived up to the hype of where he was drafted, but he's just been a rock solid rotation guy on a bunch of playoff teams, and so he's kind of been there. So there's actually Kyle and I did our leadership power rankings in the absence of both Pat Beverly and the leadership of Jared Vanderbilt on the court doing some of the dirty work. Mm-hmm. So that is a thing too. Like, who kind of steps up? What kind of a leader is Gobert going to be on this team? He's a veteran, but I don't know that he's ever been viewed as like the vocal leader of the Jazz the last few years. So who are those people that are going to kind of be able to get to Cat and say, hey man, let's
tone it down.
Deep breath. It's okay.
Exactly.
Stay focused. Be a cyborg. Be Kobe, be Tim Duncan. You know, KG was emotional, but like when it mattered, KG was not like flying off the handle committing dumb offensive fouls. He was dialed in and ready to go to work.
And what's tough about that whole scenario is you don't want to strip the guy of his passion. Like, passion's good. Being intense is good. But it also crosses with Cat a line. So, like, that's the thing is, because you don't want to, like, oh, okay, man, everything's fine. Just calm down and play flatline. So that's where KG at times was brilliant, right? Because, like, he would be pissed off, but he would channel it the right way. How do you get Cat to channel that?
Yeah. And then number 5, this is going to get Declan's ears to perk up because he was all over this guy before any of us were here on the show. What is Jaden McDaniels' upside? So he dropped 50 points in that Jamal Crawford Pro-Am a couple months back. It's actually like a mile down the street from me. And if you've watched him in these preseason games, he's showing some handles that didn't exist in the last couple of years, where he's shaking, baking, and spin moving his way to the rim and stuff. So, at worst, he's just a good rotational guy that can block some shots. He can get hands in passing lanes and be good in transition, maybe knock down some threes from different spots. But there's another intriguing level to his frame and his game that involves handles and getting to the rim and scoring at different levels and some of the dirty work stuff that he's been known for the last couple of years. So I am curious to see what Jaden McDaniels' upside or just his next level looks like this year.
Well, he's a pretty positive defender, and he's got this crazy length, and I think he's also bulked up a little bit. He was pretty skinny and thin when he got in the league, and now he's kind of put on an extra more load of muscle. And last year he was becoming that quintessential 3-and-D guy. So corner threes, he hit 49% of his corner threes last year. Wow. So is there another gear to his 36%, but 49% attempted were his biggest chunk of corner three. So
36 is still very good, by the way.
Very good, right? So they made a concerted effort to make him get at corner threes because he can knock those down. Is there another level to that scoring game? Because I think his defense is going to be awesome. And with him and Gobert potentially on the court together, the Wolves actually might have a pretty solid defensive combo. But is there another offensive ceiling to his game?
Yeah, that's and there's something there. And sometimes these guys too, like he was one of the best high school players in the country and then had a weird freshman year at Washington, and so his stock went down, but it doesn't mean that talent doesn't still exist. So I don't know what really happened in that Washington year, but there's still, if you were to look at his stock as a player 3 years ago, you're kind of seeing why he was so highly touted coming out of high school. Per 36 minutes last season, 13 points, 6 rebounds, a couple assists, a block, a steal, and 46% shooting from the field and 80% free throws. And this is as like just a raw 21-year-old kid that's still trying to figure out what he is in the NBA. So,
with all due respect to our guys, Darren Doogie Wolfson and even Dane Moore, I believe, I was mocked when I said Jaden McDaniels should be in the rotation like the first 5-6 games 2 years ago. I said I think the words they used were you have a better chance of cracking the rotation right now than Jaden McDaniels. So just
they all laughed.
They all laughed at me.
They all mocked you. If you trust Conley, which I think we probably do, he could have gotten out of a lot of those draft picks that went to the Jazz if McDaniels had been included in that trade.
Yeah.
So like there's a definite priority put on him that is substantial because those draft picks go way down as far as amount sent to the Jazz if McDaniels goes to the Jazz.
I had heard, and some of this is,
inside.
I wouldn't say it's super ironclad, but I had heard that it was like the choice was either Jaden McDaniels or 2 additional draft picks. Okay. And they said, we love what we have here in Jaden McDaniels. We'll kind of figure out the contract situation next year. We'd rather have him than the 2, 13-year-olds that will be drafted in a few years.
That's a Macadac bomb right there, ladies and gentlemen.
It is. That's right. There's Shams, there's Woj, and then there's old Macadac here.
Macadac
We're all kind of
from
operating
Seattle.
in tandem. Yep. So there you go. There's my Wolves pecking order, the 5 things I am most curious about going into the season that starts in a week. And we're going to be collectively here all over the winter sports scene. Hopefully they continue to make it interesting. But you guys have your Judd's Hockey Show. I got Flagrant Howls over here with Kyle. And we're looking at probably multiple, I would say 2 episodes a week of each of those shows, in addition to our discussions here on Mackey and Judd every day.
Yeah. And unlike the Wolves, the Wild starts out with a gauntlet. The Rangers on Thursday, Fiala and the Kings.
Yeah.
I think they opened the season with a 4-game homestand, and I think it is 3 playoff teams from last year, and then Bruce Boudreau and the Vancouver Canucks, who almost made the playoffs. We got a gauntlet coming up at the X.
Rangers, Kings, Avs, Canucks, all at home. I think you have to go to Boston too, like right after that. So yes, it's
bring it on.
Could be tough sledding. We'll see though.
Yeah,
let's get it. All right, that's a wrap here on Mackey and Judd today. Daily Minnesota Sports Entertainment. Find our other daily show, Purple Daily, and please click subscribe on our 2 YouTube channels, Score North and Purple Daily. We are making our way to 50,000 subscribers here, hopefully before the end of the year. So thank you guys for helping us build this community of sometimes suffering but often hopeful Minnesota sports fans.